A quick note before I begin this review, I want it to be known that while I do own the game and have played it before using my original console, see right here? Oh yeah, look at that original sexy black disc. Anyway, I wanted it to be known that while I did originally play this game on the Sony PlayStation, I did use an emulator in order to capture the video for the game. This mainly just boils down to the fact that I was having a hard time capturing the video signal for the actual game, so I kinda had to find a workaround for that. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that before we begin, so yeah, thank you very much. Survival horror is a hard game to pull off, and even harder to mix with other genres. There are only a handful of games that have tried to make a combination of survival horror and RPGs specifically, and Koudelka would be considered as one of the more obscure titles that have tried that. In the game, you play as the titular Koudelka, a woman who remains shrouded in mystery throughout the majority of the story. She has been summoned to a monastery in Wales by a spirit, and that pretty much sums up her reason for going there. Almost immediately, you will run into your second party member, Edward Plunkett, who has his own reasons for coming to the monastery, though it's really lame. While exploring, they find out that the monastery is a host of ghosts and monsters. Surprise! While this would definitely shock most people, the caretakers of the monastery are surprisingly cool with the situation, even offering soup to Koudelka and Edward. Shortly afterwards, you will run into Father O'Flaherty, a fairly bigoted priest.
Why all those liars and heathens are killed is none of my concern.
How could you possibly say a thing like that? That doesn't sound very priestly.
I am not a priest. I am a bishop.
I don't give a rat's ass what you are.
Fine, Bishop, don't get your knickers in a twist. Like it or not, O'Flaherty is your third and final party member, so get used to listening to all the things that are beneath him. You'll have to go and play the game to find out the rest of the story yourself. Or, if you want to be lazy, I suppose you can just go and watch a video that contains the entire story, which I may link in the description or whatever. As far as gameplay goes, you wander around the monastery and its surrounding buildings to try and uncover their various secrets. While moving, you will run into random battles, and as far as I could tell, there's no real safe area where monsters won't be able to spawn, so be ready to run into a lot of monsters. The battle system takes some moment to get used to, but once you understand it, it's actually really pretty simple. The battle environment is grid-based, with your party starting on one side and the enemy party on the other. You can move your pieces, or characters, forwards and back. However, you cannot move your pieces past an enemy piece. And likewise, they can't move their pieces past one of your pieces. What this means is that you will usually have at least one of your characters up front taking the brunt of enemy forces, while your squishier characters are in the back, hanging out and slinging magic at opponents, or shooting them with ranged weaponry. Since while they're back there, they'll be unable to be attacked by enemies unless they have magic or ranged physical abilities themselves. Which throughout the entirety of the game I can count maybe 3 enemies that actually had ranged physical attacks. All magic requires MP or magic points to cast, which you can refill using items to replenish MP, but minus a few times early in the game, I rarely found the need to use items or go out of my way to heal just to fill up my magic. All characters have the ability to cast magic, and the more they cast magic, the more powerful they will become with that specific spell. With the downside that once they've leveled up that magical ability, it will cost more magic power to actually cast. Besides the basic ability to cast magic to damage enemies and heal allies, you can also cast buffing spells on your party to temporarily raise attributes for that one battle. As you battle your way through the game, you will of course level up, and you can allocate new stats to your characters. It's a neat little feature that you can essentially build your party however you want, making any of your 3 characters fit a specific role. So if you want Koudelka to be up close and personal with enemies, you can certainly do that, making her a badass warrior. Generally though, the accepted standard quote-unquote party combination is Koudelka as a magic damage dealer, Edward as a physical damage dealer and tank, and James as a healer. Though, honestly, throughout my game, even though I made it to where James was supposed to be more of the healer, Koudelka was often better at healing anyway. Womp womp. Occasionally after battles you'll pick up items and weapons that your characters can use. Weapons often have elemental attributes attached to them, though what their effects are can be confusing. Normally, I wouldn't go in depth to what these attributes are, but since the game so rudely decides not to tell you anything about these attributes, I'll go ahead and break it down a little bit. First, there are normal weapons. They're nothing special. They don't do bonus damage, but they can hit just about everything. The next are fire, water, air, and earth weapons. These weapons do bonus damage to any monsters of the opposite type. This means that water weapons do bonus damage to fire monsters, fire weapons do bonus damage to water monsters, because that makes sense, and the same thing applies for air and earth. They're opposed. Dark weapons do damage to light monsters, though there actually seem to be very few light monsters in the game, and light weapons do bonus damage to undead monsters, but heal everything else! Side note, light weapons suck, don't use them. Mystic weapons will drain magic points from your enemies, and vital weapons drain health points. There's also a thing where certain weapons will do damage based off of what your character's physical attack power is, and some that will do damage based off of what their magic power is. Thoroughly confused yet? Good, we'll continue. With that explanation out of the way, we come to the biggest problem with Koudelka. It does not hold your hand at all. While it's okay for games to have some level of entry, for those trying to get into the game for the first time without looking into its details are probably going to have a hard time. It's also relatively easy to run into some really powerful enemies early on that can completely wipe you out before you've even had the opportunity to save for the first time, which can be frustrating to say the least. While I wouldn't say that the game requires as much stat managing as say a game like Dark Souls, you do need to be careful on how you are leveling up your characters, as making their stats too unbalanced can make it more difficult down the line. One good example is the Piety stat. Piety. Piety? Piety? Piety. Piety allows your character to be able to cast stronger healing spells, while at the same time make them more resistant to magical attacks. However, if you raise it too much, your character will also become resistant to their own healing spells, so that can be a bit of a bummer. Visually, the game looks actually fairly decent for a PS1 game. I mean, honestly, it looks like crap now, but that's the same with most games given enough time. One of the more interesting parts of the game's visual representation is how fluid the character's movements actually look in the in-game cutscenes. It really looks like they put a fair amount of work in motion capture, which was something that was relatively underutilized at the time. Let's compare the movement in Koudelka with the movement of another horror title with a much bigger budget at the time, Resident Evil 2. As you can see, the movement in Koudelka is much more realistic, but Resident Evil 2 is able to change camera angles as all of Koudelka's cutscenes had to be pretty much limited to a single point of view. This unfortunately brings us to another point of contention within Koudelka, and that's that moving around the game world is very, very slow. The main reason for this is because the game takes a while to load each background whenever you move even what seems like a very short distance. It's so dull when you find yourself moving around and reaching a black loading screen every few seconds. Open a door? Loading screen. Go down the stairs? Loading screen. Talk to this thief? That'll be a loading screen. Move around a meter? Loading screen for you. Get the point. Another piece of contention is the music. For the most part, the game is dead silent, with virtually no music whatsoever unless you get into a fight or a cutscene. The music in the cutscenes seem fairly appropriate, often being subtle and somber to fit the mood, while the rest of the music in the game is... well, here, let me give you an example. I'm going to show you a black screen and play a short clip. I'll have you guess what should be going on in this scene based off of the music. Now, if you were to say this was a menu screen, or a point in the game where the main cast found a gypsy carnival, I'd say yeah, that music would fit this type of situation. But nope, that's not where this music comes into play. This is the theme for the final boss of the game, because nothing says unspeakable horror like this. Now, here's the thing, I don't hate the music here. but I do think that it just doesn't fit what's going on and detracts from the mood rather than adds to it. So I guess the question is the game really worth playing? And truly, I'd have a hard time saying yes here. It's interesting, without a doubt, with some really good high notes and some really big missteps. Its CGI cutscenes were excellent at the time and are still decent today. It also has a relatively interesting plot that eventually led to the Shadow Hearts franchise, and it dared to try and be different even if it wasn't completely successful. So while I wish I could give this the seal of approval, I just can't. If it sounds interesting enough for you to try and give it a shot, go ahead and try to find a copy. Good luck with that. For everyone else, it's probably not worth the immense amount of effort it would take to actually find a physical copy, but is worth remembering as an example of how video games have evolved. Hey, thanks for watching our review of Koudelka. If you like the video, please, like and subscribe like it says down below. Also, if you wanted to get notifications whenever I upload a video, hit the little bell icon. That looks kind of like that. And it'll let you know whenever I upload something new. My current schedule has it to where I'm going to try and upload a new video every Sunday at noon. And if you want to check out any of my previous reviews, I'll go ahead and leave a link to that right here. So I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.